Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this brand new JJ's One Man Podcast. And man, do we have some stuff to talk about today, boy, because there's some things to get into. And it's been kind of, rumicating for a while. It's been like just like, I guess you could say, cooking up because of all these other things that have been going on. But before we get into it, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you like this video. Leave some comments down below. Of course, you could do so while you're listening to this whole conversation or afterwards, whatever have you. But show some love in the comment section. Keep a good discussion going. It helps out the channel immensely. So, what am I talking about? What are we discussing that's so important if you haven't already looked at the title? Let's talk about the layoffs that hit G4 recently. Okay, let's talk about G4TV as a company of its whole resurgence. It's a whole kind of coming back type of thing. Let's talk about everything because I have a lot of thoughts with this and I have a lot of, emotions and a lot of just, perspective on this that is pretty different than what I'm seeing from a lot of other people, but in relation to everything that's gone on. And I just have a lot that's related to this. Now, if you didn't already see the news, if you didn't already see the articles, because literally when I'm recording this, it happened late last night, I guess you could say, or somewhat last night, G4TV had laid off about almost 30 people, okay, staff members, out of a staff that was around 200, which a lot of people are pretty shocked at, myself included. But they laid off around 20 to 30 people. Okay, at least that it was being reported by Kotaku and coming from various sources that were sharing stuff online after the story broke. They were posting it up on Twitter and such. So the big thing is that there's a lot of reasons for this and a lot of things a lot of which we know and a lot of which that we don't know. A lot of the people that are getting cut off and a lot of people that are getting laid off, they're going to be getting some unemployment for about 16 weeks to about 6 months, depending on their tenure over there at the company at Comcast, which is the parent company now of G4. That's their bosses. That's the ones that own G4 practically, right? And the thing is that a lot of this stuff that's happening is in the midst of all this other weird kind of bad place that G4 has been for a while. And what I mean is that the numbers and the reception of it and just the overall, reaction to G4 in general, on top of all these other things that have been happening behind the scenes in relation to it, have been just compounding together. And here's the thing, okay, because not only did they lose their, they had to replace their CEO or their president, which was Russell Aarons, that ended up leaving for whatever reason, okay? There was a couple different things that were put out there about it that probably were the reason why she left, but nobody knows for certain because nobody's really just coming out and saying it. But I think that many people that are following this stuff, especially a lot of content creators that have been reporting on G4, with everything going on for a while, there's been a couple different reasons, and we're going to get into it, okay? So I'm going to say some things that a lot of you are probably not going to like. A lot of you are probably going to have a problem with. And I understand because there's a lot of emotions and a lot of points of view when it comes to this stuff. But a lot of people, myself included, have been looking at G4 for the last year and change because G4, ever since they had their comeback, has been around for about a year, give or take. And a lot of this stuff that's happening now, or at least stuff that's been happening, I could have seen from a very far distance away. And it's not just me. It's a lot of other people who have been saying stuff like this or have been looking at G4 and have been feeling a little uneasy and indifferent about it. And there's a couple reasons. One of the big reasons, I think that it's not the sole reason, but also a very big part of this that people have discussed was obviously that big rant that Frost Kieran had on one of the segments of X-Play. Now, I don't think it's fair to blame one person for a lot of the woes that G4 has been getting as a company for a while now. But we're not just going to sit here. We're not going to be dishonest with ourselves and dishonest with, what it is and what the reality of this situation is, that rant or that whole little exhibition didn't contribute a lot to what's been going on. Okay, the problem is that what she was saying was not disagreeable. I agree with some of the things that she had mentioned, and I've talked about that in the past very briefly. I've been very quiet about what's been going on with G4 as of late. But one of the things that when that whole rant happened, and I talked about it with some other people, was that I don't disagree with some of the stuff that she's bringing up, but I do disagree with the way that she went about it. I do disagree with the way that this message was trying to be delivered and the way that it was presented and the way that the company acted. And it's not just her, it's literally a bunch of people that were over there. Okay. I'm not even going to get into the whole thing with the Black Hokage. That's a whole other thing, which we'll get to later. And the same thing also with Gerard the Completionist, which I have no issue with. But let's be honest here and look at the situation objectively. They let Frost Kieran just rant. They let just Frost Kieran just go up there and deliver a point which might have had good intentions, but she ended up talking down to the audience. And it was all compounded and culminated into a statement that people took to heart, which was, if you don't like it, don't watch. And I think that's the worst thing you could do as a host or as a person that's a creator that's making something for the audience, especially if you're part of a network. Because if you tell people not to watch it, if they got an issue with something, especially if you're talking down to them, they're going to do exactly that. And that is like a really detrimental, really hurtful thing to do to a company, let alone your channel. And it's been showing for the last, couple of months, if not longer, ever since this year started, ever since that rant happened, where the numbers for G4 as a YouTube channel, on top of what they did to both of their YouTube channels, and I mean both the original, G4TV channel or G4 channel and the X-Play channel, where they kind of did this switcheroo. They rebranded both channels, like they switched them. One of the worst decisions I've ever seen. I think that was a real dumb move. And it might have made business sense on the back end with analytics and all this other stuff to do something like that, or to take a drastic action in that direction. But why anybody would think that's a good idea or a show of like a healthy network or a healthy channel is beyond me. Because if you really were doing well, or that at least that you were sticking to your guns and sticking your hands or your feet into the ground like that, digging your heels, then you wouldn't have to do something like that. And it shows in the numbers of the videos where a channel that was, I think it's like over 500,000 or close to it, something like that. They have a lot of subscribers, but their views are like not great, especially when you look at the things that people point out for various different things. Like they couldn't even get, huge numbers for some of their exclusive interviews or some of their exclusive content that was related to current events. And while that's a problem that everybody really kind of goes through on YouTube, you would think that a company or some sort of channel or group that has the backing of a big company like Comcast and has access to all these resources and stuff, they would really be up at the forefront with places like IGN, with places like GameSpot, with other channels that are similar, like with Easy Allies or Last Stand Media or Kind of Funny or any of these other places that do far better than a lot of their content. Especially if you spend so much money on a set that has so many different things. Like if you got resources like that, you should be doing far better than what everybody's seeing. But that's besides the point though. Okay, the main thing is that this attitude, on top of a lot of their actions that they've had over the last year, has not been great. And it's sad to say, because while I think it's terrible that people are losing their jobs and people are being put in a position that's really indifferent, some of the people were complaining that they were blindsided by some of this, which I find a little hard to believe, especially some of the people that are over there, which we'll get to in just a bit. But a lot of this stuff just seems to be the result and just pretty much the company reaping what they sowed a while ago. It's almost like if they did this to themselves, like they shot themselves in the foot. Because ever since G4 was first announced that it was coming back, a lot of people have not been too excited. There's people that are excited here and there, but the majority of people are like, why do we even need this? Why do we even want this? Now, that's not the only couple of things from my perspective, because I know I've been talking about a lot of different stuff up to this point, right? That's not the only thing from my perspective that I feel like was bad, or at least showed me that there was something wrong with all of this and why we're in the position we're in now as far as G4 is concerned. I even said that things were a little bit weird and wrong right from the very get-go when they started doing that campaign to find the next G4 TV star. You guys remember this when they did this whole kind of campaign and asked people to submit videos and hashtags and stuff like that? Because I submitted a video for that too, as well as a lot of my colleagues and people that I'm not really friends with anymore that actually submitted videos for this. And that's fine. But you want to know what this was? This wasn't an attempt to find the next person they could add on staff. All that was, when I finally realized it was for them to get airplay. It was for them to get people using their hashtags and to get buzz on social media. They weren't actually looking for people to join their ranks and to join their staff. It's crazy because a lot of people in the industry, in the games industry specifically, and content creators, we all fell into that. We all fell into that little kind of goofy trap. Because we all thought with our content creation skills, with all of our, know-how, our presence on social media, this should be a given. And all it was, what they ended up doing was just choosing some random person that you never heard of again, which I'm sure that they ended up going over there to work with them. But let me tell you something. Besides this, I was a little bit bitter after that. And I was a little bit bitter later on too, because besides that, I also personally, I applied to other jobs for G4 that weren't really so publicized, but there were other stuff that was related to it. And it just felt like a lot of the people that were getting picked up, to go join them, and a lot of the people that were really doing stuff with them, it felt like it was all like a very closed off bubble. It felt like, it wasn't something that, was really like part of the fields where it's like you have a realistic shot going into like a company. Like if you had like an application to like, a Polygon, or an application to like GameSpot, or any of these other like big, larger companies, as much as some people like to say that they're very like closed off to the rest of the world, it's actually, believe it or not, it's not as true. It's not as closed off as you would think. Like you actually have a much more of a realistic shot going for one of those companies, applying with, whatever resume you have, as opposed to going with G4 at times. At least that's how it felt to me, because it just was weird. Like there was people getting picked up over there that I felt like, it was just not good, and you want to talk about the level of quality of individual. And I think this is sad and messed up to say, and I know it's not good. And a lot of people might say like, oh, JJ, you really shouldn't be talking like this. That's not cool. People lost their jobs. And you're right to an extent. But let's be 1,000% real, 1,000% honest here. Some of the people that have gone over there to work at G4 have not been good people, have not been great, have been actually quote unquote toxic / like really hostile towards a lot of others. And I'm not talking about Frost Curran, okay? If you don't know who I'm talking about, then don't worry about it. But those that know me probably do. The main point is that some of those same people, even some of those that were affected by these layoffs, are some of the same individuals that will go out of their way on social media or behind the scenes to try to dogpile and talk down about others that have gone through similar hardships, whether it's losing their jobs or getting dogpiled on social media or just getting ostracized and all this other stuff. They're quick to do things like that. But then there'll be, they'll want the sympathy. They'll want like, everybody to empathize with them or to feel sorry for them. And it's just like, you take a step back after seeing all this, especially after so long, you take a step back and you look at all this and you're like, man, I don't even know what to feel right now, because I want to have empathy and sympathy for the people that are affected by this, because nobody should have to lose their job, especially if you're getting surprised by it. But like, when you look at all that other stuff and you look at the way that some of them have talked down to their audience and talked down to other people, it's like, reap and sow. Or better yet, karma. It always is going to come around in some weird way. Karma's a really funky thing and a funny thing at times. But I digress. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but sometimes that's the truth. That's the reality of the matter. Now, the other thing too, like I mentioned before, to go back to some of those other people, like obviously Frost Curran, obviously the Black Hokage, obviously a lot of other people, including Adam Sessler, who I have a lot of respect for Adam Sessler for many reasons. I know a lot of people don't like him right now. He's been nothing but nice to me every time I've met him over the years. But even me, some of my like patience and some of my like, respect gets tested when I see some of the things and what he's done over the last half a year. And the way that he's acted on social media, the way that he's talked to people, the way that he's, talked down to a lot of the audience, not just of G4, but just the gaming audience as a whole. Like, what's crazy to me, too, especially after that Frost Curran, whole episode and that whole exhibition, was what the channel did right afterwards with the thing with, obviously, with Amaranth when she was in a bikini in the ball pit. It almost it looked very hypocritical, but it also shows is one hand is not talking to the other over there. And at the same time, is you want to appeal to some type of audience that nobody knows really what it is. You have this thing that Frost and the Black Hokage and all these other people do, but then you go over here and do this other thing, which is back to the old, archaic style of G4 that people have wanted for a while. But it's I don't think people really want that. I think what they want is a little bit of consistency and something that they might need that they didn't know that they needed back then. And I don't think that this channel or this network has done so. I think that, with all the news stories and all the other stuff that has come out about how Comcast wanted to capitalize on the name and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. I can't really blame Comcast here, even though a lot of people feel like they could go to them because they're the parent company, it's your guys' fault and stuff. I don't really think that's the case, because Comcast is the entity that's going to provide the resources and going to give them the tools to do what they need to do. But it's really G4 as a group that's really you got to blame here, because they're the ones making the content. They're the ones making some of these decisions. And I think like after a while, some of the people over there, and there are stories and there's talk about this. There's some people that have legit sources at Comcast that after that whole rant literally came out and said like, look, like the Comcast people saw this and they were not happy, and they went over there and started to do some talking downs to and started pulling some coats. Like there's legit stuff out there from legit sources that have talked about this. I really feel like at some point Comcast was just like, you know what, enough games. Like we've indulged you for enough. Now it's time to return on what we expected of you and what we expect of you going forward. And I don't think that the people over there at G4 that were running it and making decisions and doing all this stuff were really prepared for that. I don't think they ever really thought about it. I think that the attitude that most of them had, and some of the people that have been put out there and then put on blast on social media, had this attitude where they felt like they were invincible, that they could say whatever they want now that they're part of a company and they have the support of their peers, but not the support of their larger bosses, larger company. And I think it works out like that sometimes for certain entities, and you can't help but just look at it and just shake your head. It's like, I feel for you, but you can't be surprised that some of this shit is happening. You can't be surprised that like the reception that you got from the audience was the way it was after you treated them or you came off a certain way. Because let me ask you guys a question and really think about this. Why is it that even though you might have criticisms for some of these other outlets and some of these other channels on YouTube, but like despite your criticisms, you're not having the same type of reception that most of you did have to the new G4? Really think about that. Even think about some of the topics that someone like Frost Curran or someone like the Black Hokage or someone like, I'm trying to think, Adam Sessler or Kevin Pereira, have tackled or have talked about and stuff. And yet most of you have a much more volatile reaction to them as opposed to all these other channels. There is a part of it that has to do with, is G4 really needed because we have all these other channels and other outlets to go for our content that we didn't have back in the early 2000s or the mid 2000s. That's totally fine. And I get that. And I partially agree. But really, we could have still had G4 and still none of this could have happened. We could have had G4 and things could have been handled so much better. The content for most people, including myself, it's just not appealing. Like, I get it. You have the completionist. I get it. You're doing Scott the Woz reruns. I get it. You have some of these streams that are like old classic goofy G4 skits or like, weird humor or kind of like awkward humor. I get it. But the audience has changed since the 2010s. People are different right now. People have grown up and you have new people that aren't really about that. So what's up? Like, if I want to see the completionist, if I want to see Scott the Wands, I will go, or Scott the Woz, I said Wands, but Scott the Woz, I'll go watch their channels. I'll go watch their content. And most of the time, I'm going to be honest with you, that type of content doesn't really appeal to me. It's their personalities or the fact that they want to be personalities and they want to be presented in a certain way. When I'm going to G4, and I've always said this for years, when I'm going to G4, I'm looking for more informative content. I'm looking for content that I'm going to get something out of it that is going to be insightful or going to be interesting or exciting. And I have not been getting that from the new G4. I feel like that they're caught on, capitalizing on the names of people that have been doing stuff before they went over there. I feel like that they don't understand who their true audience is because they don't want to cater to the old G4 style, which is where all the bulk of their audience is. But they also don't want to cater to like the modern day gamer or the modern day person who wants to look at this stuff because they want to capitalize on their own message or their own views on stuff or their own type of content that caters to them, not the audience. And again, I'm jumping around here and there, but like you could understand now why all these things are making up like the perfect storm of like stuff that's like all messed up. And then you throw on there all the stuff of, again, between the rant, between the hypocritical stuff that people have went out and found. A lot of people were really down on the Black Hokage, not because of his race, because I saw that being shared on social media multiple times. A lot of people were mad or annoyed with that guy because of his skin color or anything of the sort, which they tried to kind of give that appeal off, right? They try to make that argument, but it wasn't the case. It was the fact that you're part of this whole thing with Frost Curran, but here you are on your own YouTube channel doing and saying all these different things, which makes you look like a massive hypocrite and makes you look very suspect. I'm going to be honest with you. Like some of the things that I saw on there that were shared around were very weird. And it's like, really? Like if all the people on that staff felt all a certain way about all this type of stuff, but did anybody bother to look at your past content, your backlog of content? Like, come on now. really, you got to ask these questions. And it could be because maybe over there at the company, they were doing a lot of hiring your friends. Maybe they could have been taking everybody at their word. There could have been a lot of like blind trust on stuff, whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, the content spoke for itself, and the channel and the way that it was presented spoke for itself, and the audience spoke right back. The majority of the audience, not just the people that were blindly like supporting them and all this different stuff. It was really the people that were really being honest with themselves and being honest with everybody around them. And it shows, because if that was the case, y'all wouldn't be laying off like 20 to 30 people right now from a staff of over 200, which is, again, another shocking thing. A lot of people were expecting like, damn, like there's no way these people could be making money. There's no way they could be making a profit if they're hiring that many people, doing that many things, and they're getting this type of reception, which definitely seems to be the case. A lot of people have been saying that for a while. Again, they said a lot of different things where we saw this coming from miles away. And it seems like now it's only starting to come closer and have, hit the reality hit a reality check for a lot of people. And I get it. I totally get it. I don't like it. I don't think that we needed to have this happen. I don't want to see people lose their jobs. I don't want to see G4 fail and wallow and just like feel like the whole company is going under or the whole brand is going under again. But we have to be honest with ourselves. We got to call a spade a spade. We got to be real with what's going on here. Now, again, it's just, like I said, I have sympathy. I have empathy in some regard, but a part of me is just like, you know what? Whatever. It is what it is. And it's a shame. It's a real shame. Now, I do think at the same time that a lot of people are being a little facetious with the way that they're talking about all this stuff, with the way that they're kind of covering a lot of the things that are going on there. What I think is also crappy too is that some of the people that are reporting some of these things, they're kind of reporting it in glee, which I don't think is ever a good thing. I don't think it ever looks good reporting on the woes of other people with such a gleeful emotion. I think that's crappy because I wouldn't want someone to do that to me, and I don't think anybody else would want someone to do that about them. Even though it is the internet, you can't really control the internet. The internet's going to internet, and it's going to be the way it is. But really, and when you really look at everything, it's just that we have to call a spade a spade. It is what it is, and it sucks. I think that G4 is going to continue onward. I know that there's been some statements, even on the Kotaku article, which I'm reading now as I talk to you guys, some of the things that were said by a couple of the people there that were laid off, and a couple of the other people that are still there. They don't know if there was going to be a G4 like in a couple of days, because if there's even more layoffs that are coming and more peeps that are going to be affected by this, and the content overall, the way that it was made and stuff, is going to be affected. So it might not be for the better. It might actually be the final nail in this coffin. And do I think that's going to happen anytime soon? No. I think that it'll probably be in more like a couple months, maybe another year, depending, see how things, the reception of different content they have. Because let's be honest here, the God of Work series, and that it's based off of God of War, it's a parody, I get it. But myself, I watched a little bit of it and I'm not feeling it. And I think a lot of other people are not feeling it either. That's nothing against the completionists. That's nothing against anybody that worked on that show or on that content, but it is not landing. Clearly, this is not the content that people want to see. This is not the content that's going to resonate with the bulk of the people that are going to tune in to G4. I get it. It's creative. But there's got to be a new plan of attack here, because clearly none of this is working. Clearly this is having negative effects on all this stuff. Do I think that some of the other people that we've seen a lot on camera are still going to be over there? You're probably still going to see Xavier Woods. You're probably still going to see Frost Kieran, even though I know a lot of people don't want to. You're probably going to still see the Completionists. You're probably still going to see Fiona Nova. I know that, the Black Hokage ended up leaving. You know who also left too? The former president. Okay, not Russell, but also Blair Hurtner. Yeah, I think he was the president or the CEO or whatever, that he ended up leaving some time ago, which, again, a lot of these departures should tell you all you need to know about how the state of this company has been. And even coming out now, I'm looking at this now, I didn't even realize, but their financials have been in like a really crappy state for a while, like in a bad state, apparently, that it's been known for a while. And they've been, having meetings and stuff in order to figure out what to do, and it's just not working. I know that there was one thing, not on this article, but I saw in another place where it was being reported, that they had their kind of like G Forum, their little town hall meeting at one point before Russell left. And it was just, what's it called? It ended up not being good. They ended up having like a bad blow up and a bad back and forth, apparently. Okay, because I wasn't in that room, but I'm going based off what's being reported. And I would not be surprised if that was the case. I would not be surprised. It's just weird, man. It's just very weird. I know that's a lot to take in now. There's a lot of stuff that I'm jumping all over the place. Some of you might not like what I have to say or had to say and all this stuff, but it is what it is, and that's just my general feelings of it. I'm not going to glorify the fact that people lost their jobs, but at the same time, I'm not going to shed too many tears for how the company has put themselves in this position and has allowed a lot of stuff to happen in the way that it did. At the same time, for some of the people that are affected, like some of them I do have empathy for and have sympathy for, and I hope that, they land on their feet and stuff. Others who have been a little bit more hostile, either towards me or towards the audience, I just can't do nothing but shake my head and just move on. So anyway, let me know your thoughts about all this stuff down below in the comments section. Again, it's a lot. Keep the conversation going. What did you guys think about how G4TV has, relaunched, its reception, its troubles that it's going through now, some of the things that you saw happen on there? Let's try to keep it respectful. Please try to keep everything chill. I don't mind the discussion, but as soon as I see something like that's not like great and people just acting like jerks or whatever, then I'm just going to yeet those out of the comments. You guys have been forewarned right now. You guys have been warned at the moment, but I love the discussion. I'd want you guys to keep it going, but just keep it respectful. Like I said earlier, don't forget to leave a like on this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.